Hello everybody, welcome back to another Sustainability Sunday series video. Today we're going to actually change things up a little bit, do things a little differently. Instead of continuing with talking about some of our favorite sustainability products, I wanted to talk about tech waste, or e-waste as you also may have heard it be called. I don't know, I thought this might be a good time to talk about it, maybe hopefully not too late. I know we just had Christmas, so that's a lot of time, when a lot of tech is purchased, but regardless, I think it's still really important to think about as maybe you're considering what you're going to do with those old cell phones that you maybe don't need anymore if you did just get a new one. So I do have my laptop here to kind of help guide me through it. I get very nervous in front of the camera and feeling pretty jittery from my coffee, so I didn't want to be stumbling over my words too much. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. Tech waste, e-waste, what it sounds like: phones, iPads, TVs, computers, laptops, that sort of thing. The majority of it does come from cell phones, but it's not just cell phones. And really, the biggest reason why it's such a problem is because there are some pretty heavy metals in all of these devices, and those are, for one, we have to mine them from the earth, and they are a finite resource. We don't just have unlimited metals, and so we will run out eventually. We do not synthesize it, but I think really the big problem is what's happening with the waste. Only 17% is truly recycled, and the rest is being discarded in some way, whether it's just being sent to landfill, whether it's being shipped to other parts of the world. It's often burned or incinerated at very high temperatures, and when a lot of these metals are burned that high, it releases a lot of toxic vapor into the air that is harmful to breathe in. It also ends up in water streams in your drinking water, so it really just is wreaking havoc on so many parts of the world, really, almost every part of the world, and in a huge variety of ways. So it may seem like it can't really affect you necessarily if you're not living in a part of the world where waste is being shipped to, but you may not even know if it is or not. You don't know if your air is necessarily polluted. You don't know always if your drinking water is being polluted. So it's just something to think about. And I think for me, what is personally so upsetting about the tech waste crisis is that it's not food waste, for example, where yes, food waste is a huge problem, but we need food to survive. We can't really not eat food, but we don't need to be consuming all of these electronics that we are. I know that tech has its place in society, and at this point we can't really live without it in some way, but what you can live without is a new cell phone every year. And we know that a huge majority of the electronic waste is coming from cell phones, and that is driven by people's demand to buy phones. Companies keep making new models every year because people keep buying them every year. They're doing what is profitable for them. So if you stop essentially voting with your dollars for them to make more, they wouldn't, because it wouldn't make sense for them to. And so it just frustrates me because there is all of this horrible stuff happening because our greed and consumerism and need for the newest version of a phone, even though it does the same thing that the last one does, and it's also really expensive. I honestly don't understand how people can afford to buy a new phone every year, but whatever. So that's just why it bothered me, because it's you don't need that every year the same way that we need food every day. So yeah, what is happening with these products, I think, is really what's causing some of the most harm. We know that a lot of times it's shipped to countries that are struggling a little bit more. I saw one thing that said parts of China and Nigeria are seeing, a lot of electronic waste being sent to them. And it's just sitting there, but they don't really have anything that they can necessarily do with it. And then there are people, children often, who are going and they're rummaging through all of this waste, and it's impacting them, their health, negatively, because they're rummaging through toxic metals that, maybe they've been burned, they haven't been burned, or they're just sitting there and they're leaking. Who knows? It's unsafe physically because you're in sharp trash and metal, and then two, because you're around all these metals that have a wide variety of adverse health effects. So I want to just talk about some of the metals that are in phones. There's 6 big ones: copper, tellurium, lithium, cobalt, manganese, and tungsten. And literally every single one of these has a negative effect to your health. Copper has liver and kidney issues. A lot of them are really harmful. Like I said, I think lithium is especially harmful when it's burned at high temperatures. It releases a ton of vapors. And then I also read that exposure to manganese can cause something called manganism, which is similar to Parkinson's disease. So neurological effects, different, all kinds of different effects on your organs. Just a lot of really awful stuff. Cancers by being exposed to these over extended period of time. So if you're living in a part of the world where this is happening, you're probably going to have a negative health effect because of these metals. And I know that it's not entirely the consumer's fault, so I don't want to sit here and bash you and me. I have a phone, I won't pretend that I don't, because we do know that there are things happening like planned obsolescence and things where companies make it easier for you to just replace something rather than repair it. So I know that these things exist and it's not entirely our fault, and I do think that companies should be responsible for it. I think that Apple should have to acknowledge and be accountable for all of the e-waste that they're creating, because like I said, phones are a huge majority of it, and it seems like Apple's releasing a new phone every single year. So I think if you're going to be contributing that much, they should make it easier for you to recycle your product in a more ethical way, or reuse it. For example, the phone that I have now is a refurbished Apple product, and I've had it for 3 years and it's worked perfectly. It's difficult to recycle or dispose of electronic products in general. There really aren't a lot of places that you can bring them, and it can also be difficult to find a place that is trustworthy, that you feel is going to dispose of or recycle it in an ethical way. I actually found a few different certifications that electronic recycling companies can get, and that kind of in my opinion, takes the weight off your shoulders a little bit. You can see that they have these certifications and just kind of trust and feel a little bit better about what they're doing, because these certifications come from third-party companies that essentially evaluate the company's practices and determine whether or not they are meeting the standards, doing everything ethically and responsibly to receive this certification. And if they're not, then they don't get the certification. And, for them, this third-party company that's doing the certifying, they have no skin in the game. It doesn't matter to them really whether or not the company gets the certification. So I just personally feel a little bit better knowing that. And on some of the websites for these ones that I was looking at, you can actually go on their website and search in your area for a certified recycler in your area, which was pretty cool, because I had actually found one in my town, and I went on their website and it said that they had a few different certifications, but I couldn't actually like find them. So I emailed them, asked them to send them to me. I don't know if I've gotten a response. Honestly, I have to look again, but I kind of stopped caring because on one of these other websites, one of the other certifications called eStewards, they didn't have the company listed, which I don't, the recycling company didn't claim to have the eStewards certification, but it was just kind of interesting to me that one of like the kind of most common ones, this eStewards, I kept seeing pop up over and over and over again. This recycling company didn't have that. And then I did see some other websites where the certifications they had, like, they were proud of them. They had them right on the front of their website. So to me, it was just a little bit shadier that I had to like go email the company about it. I don't know. If I feel like if you're doing good ethical things, you're gonna want to like share that openly and not have people have to dig for it. So I just thought it was pretty cool that right on the websites you could search. The three are, I will link them below too. But it's the eSteward certification, Recycling Industry Operating Standard certification, and Responsible Recycling certification. So those are just three of the most popular ones that I saw that companies can get. So you as, the consumer and the recycler can look out for those. The other thing that I think you can do that would make a huge difference is to buy new. Like I said, we really do vote with our dollars, and companies see where they're making money and where you're spending money. And if we're constantly buying the new phone, that just tells them that we want more new phones when the reused, refurbished ones are really just as good. Like I said, I've had my used phone now for a few years and I've had no problems with it, like literally none. And there hasn't once been a day where I've been like, oh man, I really wish or think I need to go buy the newer version. Like maybe that's just different for me. I don't know, but it's worked just fine. So look for look for used, recycle responsibly. I think those are like the two big things that like you and I really can do. A lot of help is going to have to come from larger entities like the government or the corporations, because it is just such a massive problem that like you and I can't go out and remove all of the waste from the landfill or the streams. Like we don't really have the power to do that, but governments do, corporations do. So you can vote, you can reach out to these people, you can make noise. Like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So let's just like bug the hell out of them, and eventually it's going to start happening. Like I said, where you put your dollars, eventually companies will start shifting that way, because unfortunately they may not care about the impact that they're having on people and animals and the world, but they will care about how much money they're making and where they can make money. So show them where we want things to go based on where we put our dollars. So I think we're going to end that video here, there, wherever. Thank you for kind of like bearing with me through this different style. I know it was a little bit different than like the structure of our other videos that we've done so far, and I think because of that I was getting a little jittery and my words were kind of coming out a little silly. So yeah, thanks for bearing with me through it all as I learn all of this. I really hope that this video today just kind of got you thinking. I don't think e-waste is something that I just kind of learned about it really within like the last year, like a year ago or so. And I just don't think, I think it's really easy to not think about the impact that it's having, because like a phone is such a small item that if it ends up in a landfill, it's like, oh, okay, it's not really taking up that much space physically. So I don't know, I just think it's easy to not really realize the impact that it can have. But I hope that once you are aware of it, I hope you think about it a little bit differently and, are a little bit more empathetic, sympathetic, whatever, to the fact that there are places around the world where like vulnerable people and children and environments and animals are really suffering because of these choices that we make every day, just because we want things and want to consume things that we honestly don't really need. And I hope that it's not something that you just kind of brush off and go, oh, it doesn't really affect me, it doesn't matter, because you should care that it affects other people in such a negative way, and it is something you should be thinking about. So I hope at the very least you take away from this video, you know, just making a little bit more responsible decisions. If we are, you know, we live in a world where like we have to consume to live, basically. I get that, but I don't think that means that we can't do that in like an ethical way or responsible way, where we are taking what we need and making sure that that doesn't necessarily harm other people in such a negative way, or like we're leaving enough for the rest of everybody. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. And until the next video, goodbye.